when you were raising those first rounds of financing, what were you looking for in those investors?
I mean, the money. Like this is like, well, I say that. I mean, I'm not trying to be clever. Like, you hear this a lot of like, oh, like, what do you look for in an investor? What's important? I'm like, I got news for you. And people don't like to say this in their TechCrunch article. They want to sound important, but it's like, most of the time, you don't have any choices. If you get your one term sheet and somebody that'll write you a check, you take it. And like for most businesses that are trying to raise money, that's the answer. And that was the answer for us for a long time. It was very infrequently. Not that it never happened to us. There was a moment where we had some opportunities, but like generally speaking, the rounds that we raised, we had one investor. And so what I was looking for was like, where's the money? And, sign the paperwork. Having said that, and I can tell some of those stories of like what it was like. And I think it's important too, because I think, people kind of look at, you talked about some of the success that we've had is like, oh, it must have been a certain way. Like, well, no, like it's a struggle for everyone. So I'm happy to talk about some of those too. But I guess, to your question, I do feel that we've been really fortunate in the investors that we've brought in. I think they have all been incredibly value additive and important to say, not destructive. Because I've heard tons of horror stories and seen a lot of stuff secondhand that would, curl your toes about the behavior sometimes of investors and boards with regards to the companies that they invest in. And I just feel really fortunate that we've had supportive, smart, helpful, partnership oriented investors from the very beginning until now at TBG.
So let's talk about those the early rounds. How many people you think you pitched, like, let's say first round of real institutional money? How many people did you pitch before you got the yes?
60?
Wow.
I don't know, all of them. Like the struggle at first was even before institutional, was just getting our seed capital together. We were trying to get $500,000 to hire those 2 programmers and build, kind of V1. And no, not exaggerating, we failed. We literally just couldn't do it. And it wasn't until my co-founder and I decided that we had to commit our own money to get things actually started. And we were fortunate enough that we could do that. So we had a few bucks saved away. So we put in the first check. And after that, we were able to catalyze the rest of the round and bring in that, a few $100,000 before any institutional money, just to get, the V1, even built. And I only say that to say, it's again, like there's a whole industry out there making it look glamorous. And there's a lot of selection bias to the people who've been through it successfully that turn around and talk about what a great idea they had and how many investors and how oversubscribed they were. And that's just not reality. It's just not, any more than, you watch a sitcom and you think that that's like a documentary about a family. Like, it's not. It's a story. And so, I just like to be real with people. Like, it was a struggle and we really failed. Now, another thing we did, I think, well, through that struggle, through that period, was we thought at the time we were raising that seed round. Again, the goal when you're venture backed, there's no such thing as one round of venture capital. If you're raising venture capital, you're going to continue raising venture capital, maybe forever, but certainly for a long, long time. And so you always have to think like, there's that phrase like, are you default alive or default dead? And at the beginning, you know what I mean? Revenue, you're default dead. You raise the money. If nothing changes, you're going to spend it all and go to business. So how do you get to that next round? That was our thing. How do we get to our Series A? And we wrote the story right then. In other words, as soon as we had that seed capital in, it was like, how am I going to raise a Series A? What are the things that they're going to want to see me having done in order to write the check into my Series A? Is it a certain amount of revenue? Is it a certain amount of customers? Do I have to have shipped a product? Like, what are the things that they're looking for? And then based on that, back out an actual plan. Like, what are we going to do when, in what order? What are we going to prioritize and deprioritize to get there? And that's kind of how you get to your time frame of how much money are we raising and how long does that have to last and what are we going to do? And so 18 months or 24 months later, we can be at this place and have a good chance to raise the round that we need to continue going, and then rinse and repeat to your Series B. And
I like that advice a lot. Right. basically do your pitch deck, basically do your Series A pitch deck at the C, do your Series B pitch deck at the A. I like that advice a lot. It's also almost visualizing, what do I want to be pitching at that moment? What do I want to be pitching? What do I have to do to get to that place?
The analogy in the product world is like write the headline, right?
Yeah.
It's like write the press release of, when you ship this product, like what you're going to say about it, or when you've, had success with this product, like what are the things you're going to brag about, what's going to be important, and work your way backwards to the product plan, from there. It's kind of the same thing. It's like envision and clarify the goal of where you need to get to it. And let's be clear, when you're venture backed and losing money, like that's your only goal is to get to the next round and keep going. And so, and then it became really easy to figure out what to do in what order in order to get there.
I have founders that I talk to and they tell me, I pitched 20 people and I got all these no's and like, I guess that's it. And I'm like, the number 60. I talked to someone the other day for the interview, it was 80. I talked to someone was 90. Like,
I mean, let's be clear. Our Series D, I pitched, I think 40 firms and had basically given up. And then the last one, I mean, it's always the last one, right? I mean, but like you won. So number 41, we were connected with, and thank God they were fantastic. Everyone's been an incredible investor now for, 8 years, but,
it's like getting married kind of sometimes, it's like finding the person who sees the value in what you're doing, believes in that vision, aligns with and there are so many thousands of investors in the world. Like that one for you exists, but it may take 100 meetings to find that one.
That's right. And again, like every, listen, handful of businesses in a generation are going to have this magical thing where everybody wants to invest in there. If you're Facebook, great. Don't listen to my podcast. You don't need my advice. For most of us, even very successful startups, like that's just not your reality. And, your business has issues, your business has problems, and those translate into risks and questions on the other side. And not everyone's going to get comfortable with those risks. And not everyone's going to have good answers to those questions. And it may not even be you. It may be like, well, the person that you pitched doesn't have the right political clout today as they did a deal last year that went south. And so when they show up at the Monday meeting with their deal memo, the partner rolls their eyes. Like it's nothing to do with you. Or like, oh man, I invested in some HR tech company 8 years ago and it stunk. I'm not going to do that again. Like, okay, that's not my problem. And so there's an umpteen million reasons why any given investor isn't going to invest in you. And a lot of them have nothing to do with you. So in a lot of ways, it is just a numbers game. And I think one of the problems, I mean, obviously there's just like how do you keep going? And it's like hard just to have the optimism and the wherewithal, but assuming that, one of the problems is, you try to make adjustments after every time. Oh, if I didn't do it right, it's because of this. I'm going to change my deck. I'm going to reorient my pitch. I'm going to try to get a little further or whatever. And like, there's an art there to knowing when is it not the pitch, and just like keep throwing your pitch. And now it's just about, finding the right person to connect with it. And what I found was at some point, the less you like, if you stop changing your pitch after some point, now you've got to figure it out and you kind of know when that is, then you actually get better at delivering it. And so just keep delivering it over and over again until you find that. And so I always think when I was going into a venture round, like at the beginning, you aren't that confident in your pitch because you haven't delivered it a lot and you don't know what's going to land and you're going to get a bunch of questions. But after you've done it, even like 4 or 5 times, you're like, okay, everyone's going to ask the same question and they're going to have this thing. Tweak those bits in the pitch. And then it's just about, okay, now I just got to get in there and just like blast through the phone book and get to the right person.